Hi, I'm Callie Lewis. You're watching Geek Brief TV. This is Brief 255. You know me, as much as possible, I'm all about the experiments. Over the past few weeks, I've been doing Skype interviews to try and get better and better quality video. I've interviewed about 20 people, and those will be released on a separate feed. Here's one of the best. It's Paul Colligan from premiumcast.com.
All right, now I want to do a quick introduction to the camera here, because this whole experiment is all about that. It's an experiment, and Paul Colligan is the guy that made it possible for us to start the experiment when we sent our MacBook to PNME, and so I was there in the virtual sense, and so he let us use his booth in order to do that. So I want to thank you for that, most importantly, because that was the start of this whole experiment, and it's been a blast ever since.
Hey, it was fun to get that huge box with the tiny MacBook in it.
You should have seen this box. It was humongous, because in order to ensure it, they had to pack it and pack it and pack it some more. It was ridiculous.
I think they own a little bit of peanut stock, a little bit of styrofoam stock, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Definitely.
They're all in this together.
So tell me about premiumcast.com.
Okay, well, you, me, all of us podcasters, we owe a lot to RSS. None of this would be possible. People go, well, haven't people been putting stuff online for a long time?
Right.
We have. But it wasn't until RSS where we got the automation and the downloads and the podcasting and all that stuff that made it so cool. Well, the problem with RSS right now, or at least the limit to it, is everybody is doing one feed for the entire world.
Right.
You have a Geek Brief like 18 kabillion viewers, and everybody gets the exact same feed.
Yes.
Which is fine in a broadcast type mentality. But what happens, and this is a question we asked ourselves a couple of years ago, what happens if we change that and each person got their own feed? What could we do then? We could do a lot of things then. We could do a lot of really, really cool things, and that's what Premiumcast is all about. One of the things we can do is you can charge for it. I mean, because if each person has their own feed and customer number 7,248, stops paying, you could turn off that customer just like you can if you're the cable company.
Okay.
If you think about that, that's very cool. But even on top of that, we can do things like track. One big thing in podcasting.
Okay.
We'll track right now. We say something like, "I got 8,000 downloads last month."
Right.
Okay, that 8,000 downloads could mean a lot of things. Because if you got 8,000 downloads this month, and you got 8,000 downloads last month, that could mean that you have an audience who loves you and is staying with you. That can mean that you have an audience who hated you last month, but the podcast buzz brought you 8,000 new suckers this month. I mean, it's not about it.
Because it can all be constantly turning over.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know because everybody gets the exact same feed. Well, if we issue 8,000 individual feeds in January, and those 8,000 feeds never get touched in February, we know that people lost interest.
Okay.
And that's very, very viable information, I mean, right now, let's be honest, we're going to advertisers, we're going to marketers, we're saying our audience is there, they're sticking with us and all that stuff. We don't know that. We honestly don't know that.
And so what you're talking about is both on the podcaster side as well as the audience side is providing more of a personal experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And simple things like now, well, like every once in a while you pop up, you talk about the GIA.
Right.
And people haven't known about, they didn't know about it. So you might talk about it on one episode. What does that mean?
Right.
It's like episodic television. You start 24 at episode 12 and you're completely and totally lost. Well, you could set this up so that maybe when somebody subscribes to the brief, they get a 3-part series at the beginning introducing them to the brief. Maybe the best of, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Dave Jackson over at the School of Podcasting, he's doing a 12-day audio podcast series on how to start a podcast. When you sign up, you get day 1 the day you signed up.
Okay.
You get day 2 the day after you signed up, and it says something witty like, yesterday you signed up. And he still recorded it once, but by giving the things sequentially and by knowing what each person has, it's an entirely different podcast experience.
Right. Yeah,
you could have some people... let's say let's say somebody's sick and tired of Callie talking about the iPhone.
How could they be?
How could they? Absolutely. You could have a special feed that is with all the iPhone stuff taken out.
Right.
You could have a feed that's only the iPhone. I mean, if everybody gets their own feed, we could do some really, really interesting things.
Okay, now you mentioned that. We spend a ton of time in conversion and post-production and everything. So when you're talking about, say, somebody gets a feed without the iPhone stuff, is that going to cause me a lot of more post-production work?
Well, it would have to be separate files.
Okay.
It would have to be that. It would have to be that kind of thing.
So you don't have some magical like.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Just making sure.
And but if every once in a while you release a special iPhone episode, which I'd enjoy, and 1.2 billion people would enjoy, but the four whiners with their Nokias, they don't have a chance. They just say no, and then the stuff doesn't get delivered to them. Those special episodes.
Okay.
I have one guy who's using Premium Cast with his students, and whenever the student submits a question, he actually records an answer to the question and sends that to them via the podcast. So could you imagine getting a podcast that says, hey, Callie, great job on yesterday's show, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And they talk, some individualized podcasting. This type of stuff can come.
Okay.
And it's just, it's really interesting, the opportunities in front of us now.
And so I do all my files through podshow.com.
Sure.
I could still route through podshow.com and still use premiumcast.com, not necessarily to charge or to do something different, but I could make sure that I'm taking advantage of the other features with Premiumcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One of the things we do is we decided we did not want to be a host. Okay, there are a lot of great pod shows doing a great job. Libsyn's doing a great job. Amazon S3 is coming in and taking over everybody these days when it comes to hosting. We did not want to be a host.
Okay.
So one of the things we do is each episode we just say, where is it located? You give us the web address.
Okay.
And so it would be geekbrief.podshow.com or whatever. And in the case if it's password protected or something like that, it's just the location behind a password protected directory. And then your user has to know to use the password protection to access the file.
Okay.
We don't host the files. We say wherever the file wants to be. Makes things a lot easier that way.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I have no power. I'm trying to get Neil's attention with a Post-it over here.
You have no power yet. Your computer's working. That's
Well, I'm on reserve battery. It's scary.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really enjoyed talking to you. And people can find you at premiumcast.com, right?
You got it.
As well as paulcolligan.com.
Of course.
Paul is one of the very few people who has already gotten his hands on a Zune 2. We had another conversation about that, but we're all under embargo until the release. It was a very cool conversation. It still is a very cool conversation. It's all about how Microsoft may be embracing podcasting more than Apple. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for using my promo codes at GoDaddy.com, GB1, GB2, or GB3. I'm Callie Lewis. Over the past few weeks, we've been doing Skype interviews on Skype, of course.